for joining us.
Thank you.
Now, let's get more on a significant story concerning Hong Kong now, as China has accused the UK of giving protection to fugitives after 8 pro-democracy activists fled the territory in recent months. The 8 activists accused of breaking China's national security laws, which came into force 3 years ago. If convicted, they could face life in prison. The British, Australian and US governments have all condemned the move. Here's Hong Kong's chief executive, John Lee.
Wherever they are, we will go after them as long as they are alive. Any persons can assist the police in arresting these people. All information will be kept confidential. Based on the reward noticed and the eventual outcome, anyone providing information will be eligible for the reward, including relatives and friends of these people.
Well, the authorities in Hong Kong are also offering a reward of 1 million Hong Kong dollars. That's around $128,000 for information leading to the 8 people's arrest. So let's get more on this from Francis Hui, who's from the Committee for Freedom of the in the Hong Kong Foundation. Thank you for joining us, Francis. First of all, the bounty that's being offered by the Chinese and Hong Kong authorities. Do you think this is just tactics, or is it serious? Are they actually trying to track these people down?
I think it's both, actually. Obviously, they can't arrest people outside of the border, but it's also an act to intimidate dissidents all across the world. I think it's a way to stimulate some sort of like an increasing pattern of harassment and threats that overseas activists like me would face. And it is also a test for the international community to see how far they could go, because we have seen human rights abuses going on and transnational repression going on, but at the same time, a lot of these countries like the US, the UK, and Australia have been trying to get positive engagement with China, and if that's continue to go on without having any accountability, without countries calling out on China, then China is just going to continue with these kind of intimidations and these atrocities. So I think the response from the international community is key and very important in this the offer of bounty and the acts that they're trying to intimidate world order and democracy.
Francis, you received political asylum in the US, where you are now. For those 8 people who are named by the Chinese authorities, this must be very frightening for them, knowing there's a $1 million bounty on their heads.
Yeah, and the $1 million bounty is actually very exceptionally high as a bounty, although it can't really buy you an apartment in Hong Kong, but proportionally, it's actually 10 times more than a child rapist, the bounty on a child rapist in Hong Kong, and it's 3 times more than a murderer. So you can also, this goes to tell like how much of a national security threat that the Chinese government and the Hong Kong authorities is seeing us as human rights defenders, and how much they care about these kind of national security criminals.
What's it like day to day living in exile? Do you live in constant fear, or are you able to lead a normal life?
I think for sure a lot of us are facing these kind of threats, especially with the increasing extensive of transnational repression carried out by China, and also, pro-CCP supporter. Me myself have been really a victim of it, of being followed. I have been followed in the past and have constantly been harassed by CCP supporter. So it's definitely a different life to live in exile. But I also think that it's a matter of like how we manage these environment and make sure we don't spread fear among our community, because we've tried very best in the past years to make sure our community is a safe space. And I think that the move of putting bounties on these overseas activists is also a way to kind of shake us up and to impose fear and to estrange our community from us, and to impose fear and threats to activist. So I think the key is also how our community is handling it and make sure we are having each other's back when we are not at home and we're out there continue to advocate for Hong Kong.
Yes, talking about having each other's back, briefly, Frances, are you in touch with these 8 people? Do you know how any of them are feeling?
Yes, a lot of them are my friends and partners that in this human rights advocacy circle. And I'm sure many of them were shocked when they woke up and see the news that they are there is a arrest warrant on them and there's a 1 million Hong Kong dollar bounty on them. But I think all of us, as we left Hong Kong in the past years, we have all kind of expected to see this day, unfortunately. And obviously, it's shocking that we're not even close to, there's such a high bounty that's offered on us, and how the CCP is using that as a way to test the international community's bottom line. But I think, again, it's for us to see how we can manage it and to continue our fights, because no matter how they are going to intimidate and threaten us, we will continue our fights. And, moving forward, we will just call harder on sanction, on economic consequences for China, because they can practice human rights abuses without any cost. And that's what we're going to continue to fight for when we're in exile.
Frances Hui, thank you very much. That's Frances Hui from the Committee for Freedom in Hong Kong Foundation. Now, I'm just going to bring you some breaking news from Jenin. Israeli forces began to withdraw